Hello, second graders. I am so glad to be with you today in one of my favorite months, November. And in November, in just a little bit of time, you're going to be having a big meal. And all of our riddles today have something to do with what you might eat at Thanksgiving. So here's our first one. Remember, if you think you know the answer, don't say it out loud. Just kind of have that look like, I know just what she's talking about. Okay, here's a hard one. Here we go. What kind of key has feathers and legs? What kind of key has feathers and legs? A turkey. Raise your hands if you think you got it. Oh, good, good. Now, second graders, I am about to tell you one of my favorite stories that I've learned in the 10 years that I've been telling stories. It is called The Hero of Indian Cliff. Nando had a little trouble climbing Indian Cliff. You see, it was on a mountain outside of his small town in the Colorado Rockies. But he had his older brother, Manuel, to guide him up this steep, steep pathway. You see, Manuel was 13 years old, and he had scampered up this pathway many, many times. But today was Nando's birthday, and he said, as your birthday gift, I'm going to take you on a hike with me up. Nando had never been. He was waiting so many years that he could get to climb Indian Cliff with his brother. His brother had brought all the necessary provisions. He had brought a rope that he hung around his shoulder, and in his backpack was their lunch. He had a couple of sandwiches, an orange, and some bottles of water. Up and up they climbed, Manuel going slowly so Nando could keep up. Once in a while, his brother was seeming to have such trouble coming up that he tied the rope around a tree and toss it back to his brother. And then his brother would come hand over hand up to where Manuel stood. As you see, it was a very steep mountain. And later, Manuel saw Nando looking over the edge of a particularly steep drop-off. And he said, Nando, don't do that. Don't look down. Always keep your eyes on the trail and look up. Nando nodded, and on they went. They went through thick forest of trees, then followed by a little meadow where there was some opening and you could see the Colorado blue skies. And then they would continue. And sometimes they would pass thundering waterfalls. And then sometimes they'd have to squeeze and climb over boulders. Once when they had to go through a really tight part of some boulders, when they got through, Manuel turned to Nando and said, I call that fat man squeeze. On and on they went in the cool mountain air till they went through one last grove of trees and came out into an open area above tree line where you could see everything, and at last they had found the top of Indian Cliff. Nando just looked around in amazement. It seemed like you could touch the sky. And then he looked down off of the cliff, and he could see his little village where he lived far, far down. He thought it looked like the cars were little Hot Wheels cars. You know what I'm talking about? And he thought the road looked like ribbons laid out in a sandbox where they crossed once in a while. he could even see a bus going down the road on this Saturday morning. But his gaze was interrupted by Manuel saying, "Come over here, come over here." And Nando ran over there. He was standing by a big tree, and it had a knothole in it. I wonder if you've seen a knothole in a tree. Had a knothole in it, and he had his hand in the knothole. And when Nando got there, he turned around and said, "Look." And in his hand were arrowheads. Arrowheads made out of stone, and that's how the Native Americans used to hunt their prey. "Wow," said Nando, "where in the world did you find these?" He said, "I've been finding them for the years I've been coming up here. And I think this used to be a Native American campground. And that's why I call it Indian Cliff." That is really cool. Well, the boys wandered around on the top of that mountain for a while. Then Manuel called his brother over to sit on a rock that was on the kind of the edge of the cliff. But from there, they could see everything, not only the little village below, but they could see far away and mountain after mountain. And even some of those mountains had early snow on the tops of them. For a while, they also watched a hawk circling in the wind drifts below them. It was beautiful, and they were both very quiet. When at last Manuel stood up, because it was time to be heading back down, and he stood up, but his feet slid out from under him. He fell backwards, almost hitting his head, but he started sliding down the edge of that cliff, down, down, down. Well, Manuel was smart. He started trying to grab anything he could, and it was just rocks, and they were carrying him further and further down. Then he slid past a tree root, and he grabbed it, and the tree root snapped off. So, oh my goodness, he'd grab at anything. He once grabbed a little ledge, little grouping of some rocks, dug his fingers in, only to have the rocks fall out. And he kept sliding and sliding and sliding further down. Finally, he saw a ledge, and as he went past it, he grabbed it again. And it held him. It held him, but he didn't waste any time rejoicing in that. He hollered up to Nando, "Nando, get the rope, tie it around the Indian head tree." And he could hear his brother running up on top of the cliff, and he could hear him doing something and hoped he was tying that rope tight around the tree. And Manuel looked down once, and he could see his feet dangling in the air, nothing below him until he reached the bottom, and by that time he would have been dead. But he thought, no, you can't look down when you're on a mountain. You have to look up. So he looked up, and sure enough, here comes the rope, snaking down like a brown snake. Once in a while, it would hang on a tree root, and Manuel would jerk it and get it coming back down again. It was within 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet, 1 foot. But just by looking at it, Manuel knew it was no good. He could never reach up and grab it. It was too far for him to reach. He hollered up, "Nando, it's no good. It's too short." He didn't know what would happen now. All he could do was concentrate on digging those hands into the cliff, holding on tightly. But his arms were burning. They were screaming with pain of holding his weight as it dangled in the cliff. He could hear his brother doing something up on top of the cliff, but he didn't know what. And so he just hung on. And then he looked up again. And here it comes, the rope, snaking down the mountain. Now it's 5 feet, 3 feet, 1 foot, and it kept coming. It came right to Manuel. Manuel quickly grabbed it and held on tightly. And then, hand over hand, he began to pull himself up. His arms were screaming with pain. Then, eventually, about halfway up, he could begin to get some footholds, and he climbed carefully, quickly but not too fast, up the face of that mountain. He had only 4 feet to go, 3 feet, 1 foot, and with the last ounce of his energy, he boosted himself over the edge and fell on the ground right beside his brother. He was so happy he thought he was going to cry. But then he looked at his brother, Manuel. Manuel was he looked at his brother, Nando, who was laying face down in the ground, holding the Indian head tree trunk, and wrapped around his ankle was the rope. You see, Nando figured out that he had to make that rope longer, but there was no way he could do it other than using his own body. Now, if you think about that a second, think how dangerous that was. If he had lost his grip, not only would his brother have fallen to his death, so would he. But that hadn't happened. When Manuel realized what Nando had done, he grabbed his brother up and they sobbed, yes, sobbed, in one another's arms out of relief. After they both got their breath, Manuel sat up and helped Nando sit up and looked at his ankle, and he could tell it was all bloody and bruised. He helped him stand up and he said, "Brother, you will lean on me as we go back down." And so they started down the mountain rather slowly because Manuel was exhausted, but mainly because Nando's leg was so injured. And they walked on and on down the mountain. After a while, Nando looked up at his big brother and said, "Manuel, you have to know I was really afraid." Manuel said, "I know, me too, but I knew all along that I was being helped by my hero, and my hero was you. Who knew that a little brother could be your hero?" So be thankful for the heroes that you have in your life. Wow. After that intense story, I think we need another riddle. Okay, get ready. Are you ready? Okay, here's this. What has feathers but webbed feet? A turkey in scuba gear. I hope you got that before I did. Now, speaking of food, this next story is going to be about how some friends down in Africa got some food after starving for a long time. The rains had not come as they had been expected in the spring. There were no crops. There were very few berries. All of the water around had dried up. The animals, the humans were all starving. Then one day Lion walked in amongst his animals and he said, "I just remembered something. I remembered that deep in that forest there is a magic tree. And if you say the name of that tree, it will open up and give you berries and fruit and meat and water. It is a magic tree." So 3 of his friends said, "What are we waiting for? Let's go." Lion led the way, followed by Monkey, Big Buffalo, and Tiny Little Tortoise. They didn't wait for a tortoise. They just kept running, but he kept up as best as he could. And deep into the jungle they ran. until they saw that magnificent tree. It was huge, just huge. And they knocked on the tree and banged on the tree, but it wouldn't open. The lion said, "Oh, yes, yes, I remember. There's a magic word you have to say." "Oh, yeah, there's a magic word," Buffalo said. "Oh, yeah. When I'm at dinner, my mother always used to make me say, 'Please.' Let's say 'please.'" So all of the four friends said, "Please, tree, feed us." Nothing happened. Monkey said, "Maybe it's something silly. Maybe it's something like toothpaste." The animals looked at each other but thought, "Well, it's worth a try." So Lion counted down to 3 and they all said, "Toothpaste." Nothing. Tortoise said, "How about please and thank you?" "Oh, good idea," said Lion. Good. Let's try that one. "Magic tree, please and thank you." Oh, the animals were so discouraged. That tree did not open up. It did not give the animals all its food. So they had to do something. Lion sat back on his haunches for a while and thought. He said, we're not too far from the magic mountain. Why don't we go ask it what its name is? "Oh, good idea," says the monkey. Let's go. He said, "Just one of us at a time." Monkey said, "Well, I'll go. I'm very fast. And they said, "Great, hurry back as fast as you can." And so he swung from tree limb to vine, from tree limb to vine. And before he knew it, he was at the base of a huge mountain that seemed to stretch into the clouds. And he said, oh, majestic mountain, speak to me. Tell me the name of the magic tree." And with a rumble from deep in the earth came, and the name, Awangalima. And it echoed all over the lands. Awangalima. Oh yeah, that's right. And Monkey turned and he started swinging his way back home. And then when he was about 50 yards from where the other animals were, he hopped down on the ground and was running. And he didn't see the big pile of fire ants. And as he stepped into the middle of that anthill, whoa, he jumped all around, But finally he got to his friends and he said, I'm back. And he was scratching his leg and he said, "I'm back." They said, tell us, what was the name of the tree?" Oh, I forgot when I stepped in the ants." "Oh," said the friends. "Oh, how could you? Buffalo said, "I'll go next. I'll get there." So he started thrashing through the brush of the jungle. And he climbed till he was at the base of that majestic mountain. So in his deep voice he said, oh, majestic mountain, tell me the name of the magic tree." And then rumbling from deep within that mountain came the word, Awangalima! And Buffalo, even big Buffalo, was almost blown off his feet. He said, "Oh, Awangalima. I'll tell it myself that 3 times and I won't forget. Awangalima, he said as he walked back. He got closer and closer to home and he started to run because he could see his friends up ahead. So he started running. And he too stepped in that fire ant hill. Oh! And as he snorted and scratched at it, more fire ants beat him. By the time he got to his friends, they said, "What's the name of that tree?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, my friends, but those fire ants made me forget it altogether." So Tortoise, little Tortoise, said, I'll go. I'll go find out the name. And so he started his journey, even though his friends were settled back on tree stumps and took naps and said, it'll take you forever to get there. We'll never find out that name. But Tortoise kept climbing and kept climbing. And first day was over. The second day was over. And finally he came to the base of that magnificent mountain. And he said, oh, majestic mountains, speak to me. Tell me the name of the magic tree. You know what it did, don't you? From deep within the earth it said, Awangalima! Tortoise said, Awangalima. Okay, I think I got it. Thank you very much. And he started back. But unlike the other animals, he didn't say it just 3 times. He said it at every step, and he took a lot of steps. Awangalima, Awangalima, Awangalima. And on he went down the mountain. First day, second day, Awangalima, Awangalima, Awangalima. And he never slept. He kept going down. And just about 10, 15 feet away from his friends, he saw that huge ant hill. And they were just starving for another meal. And he, though, said, Awangalima, Awangalima. And he went in a far circle around and got to his friends. And they said, you're finally back. That's good, but do you remember the name of that tree? And he said, indeed I do. It is, now say it with me, Awangalima! And that is the story of how the African animals had their wonderful feast. And one more riddle to get you through the holiday. Here we go. Why is it turkey always lost when it got into a fight? Because, you ready? Because it always got the stuffing knocked out of them. The stuffing. You have heard my stories and you have listened so very well. Now they are yours to tell. So maybe even on Thanksgiving you could tell them the story about the hero of Indian Cliff. Or Awangalima. Don't forget to say your magic words, please and thank you. Have a great month, and I will see you in December. Bye-bye.